right, KSK book review, The Israel Lobby and the U.S. Foreign Policy by John Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt. All right, this is a pretty compelling book. This was written back in 2007. They took a big chance, by writing this book, because of course they're writing about the Israeli lobbyist that's in the United States, and as they go into the book and explain why that was so dangerous and why it was such a big deal. Now, in this book, I'm gonna go over the main points on this book, but I'm also gonna give my perspective on it at the end. Anyway, but what John and Stephen went over, in this book, with the lobby. So they posed a question, but it was like a statement, and then they answered it with facts. So the question that they asked was, one, is there actually a powerful Israeli lobbyist group that's in the United States that that talks with senators and presidents and Congress people and so forth? Does it actually, is it a lobbyist group in the United States? And if it is it good, for the United States? Is it good for Israel? So the main points on it was, one, they covered that it actually is a lobbyist group, how much money they control, how much they influence the presidents, congressmen, senators, governors, and so forth. And of course, they cover when you're talking about Israeli, pretty much anything, you're talking about Jewish people. So they're running the risk of being called anti-Semitic. They also being, run the risk of being alienated from everything. So they took the chance anyway, and they wrote about it in the book. They talked about how the lobby, campaigned, for the war in Iraq, for the war in other Middle Eastern countries, and why. In addition to that, they went over not just what they did, far as not just what they did in the United States, but also what they do over there with the Palestinian people in Israel, and how they keep encroaching on their land, and how long that's been going on. But anyway, but to get more to the juicier stuff, the more points in the book is, one, is there actually a lobby? They asked that question, made that statement, and they answered it with facts. So it is a lobby, we know that. So then it goes into, is it good for the United States or is it bad? Now, you got to keep in mind, Israel is the country that get the most foreign aid than any country in the world. No other country gets more foreign aid from the U.S. than Israel, then and even now. So then it goes into, why is that? Well, they showed the facts that why is that is because the lobby is so strong. The lobby push, senators, congressmen, and presidents to back Israel. They go into, why do presidents, if you notice, every president, don't matter if they're Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter, they always back Israel, and they always try to prove how devoted they are to Israel. Which, if you're somebody not paying attention, you would at least ask that question, like, why does America always back Israel? Like, what is the big deal? Like, I don't get it. Like, I understand that, after the Holocaust, the support the United States gave there, and even the anti-Semitism that was given, that the U.S. citizens, how they treated, Jewish people back in the day, and even now, I'm talking about, more so, pretty much all over the United States. But, so, you go into that, and, but anyway, but does those two things, Holocaust and anti-Semitism, does that justify us continuously giving them foreign aid? And also, does it justify us agreeing with Israel on every policy? Like, we agree with them on every single policy. There isn't one policy that we don't agree with Israel on. You know, we back them with every single thing. There's not one thing that they can do that we don't back them on, no matter if they're right or wrong. And they ask, is that a good thing for the United States or not? And they feel, based on their facts, they feel that what they found is that that's actually a part of why we have a lot of terrorism issues, is because we keep butting in to that Middle Eastern problem and backing Israel, rather they're wrong or right. We always back them. Like, it isn't one thing that Israel do that we don't back them. And they understand that they're our partner. You know, I'm giving it from their perspective. And they're saying that they understand that they're our partner in the Middle East. That's one thing. But to back every single thing that they do is another. And it gets you to think, like, well, you know, they're like, well, why is that? And by them keep backing it makes anybody on the outside looking in, meaning those other countries that's in that region, they're looking at it like, so it don't matter if Israel is wrong or right, the United States are going to back them. So the problem isn't just what Israel's doing. The problem is also who's backing them. You know, so now you got a problem with Israel. Whatever your issue might have been with Israel, you also have an issue with the United States as well, meaning Iraq, Iran, and all of that. Like, even with Saddam Hussein, before he was killed, you know, he had a big problem with Israel, but his problem with Israel is his problem with the United States, because Israel is going to back it. And I'll go into that, you know, as far as the lobbyists pushing that Iraq war, and they, you know, getting pushed. Well, actually, and they was pushing with, you know, Dick Cheney and George Bush, and needed to get them on board, you know, with going after Iraq. You know, because Iraq actually was at one point in time threatening Israel. A lot of people that's, you know, got some age on, but, you know, paid attention, they remember that. And they didn't do anything, but they were threatening to do something. Iran as well. Anyway, and then, of course, for some reason, you know, we got into a war in Iraq, and nobody can really explain why we got into a war in Iraq. And they still didn't find those weapons of mass destruction to this day. Again, this is John and Stephen's points. So again, why is that? Because the lobbyists are the lobbyists that are in the Israeli lobbyists that are in the United States. Of course, they're going to push their agenda, and it's for Israel, right or wrong. They're going to push it, and they're backed by a lot of money that's in the States, and a lot of money that is in Israel, and a lot of influence. So, and it's argued that they actually are the strongest lobby in the whole United States. So there's been other things too. What else? Of course, you know, the two authors, you know, they said that they've pretty much been blackballed from a lot of stuff. They've been called all kind of names. They've been blocked. You know, anybody, they won't interview with anybody that accused them of being anti-Semitic. But this let me see what else. Another good point. They also went over as far as how Americans feel, not the congressmen or senators or governors, but actually American people, how they feel about the backing that the U.S. gives Israel. And America feel like the Americans that are here, if you know, when they do the surveys, we feel that we should back Israel, but we shouldn't unconditionally back Israel. We shouldn't back them for every single thing that they do. Why are we backing them for every single thing, right or wrong? Even if it's something that the United States is on record for saying that they don't like or don't want, that they absolutely don't want on record, they still will back Israel if Israel go against it. I mean, it would be a president like it was like with Barack, you know, different policies that, you know, or even with even with Bush and all of them, you know, especially when it comes to them keep taking land from the Palestinians. They'll say we don't like it. They don't want them doing it. Even though they don't want them doing it, they'll continue to do things that the United States is against, and then the United States back them anyway. So it's like, why would the United States back somebody that are just doing something that they don't even agree with? So it's, again, the lobby, because the lobby is that strong. They go into again, they're going to again about what's going on in Israel. They're going to about the AIPAC, about the money that's being given to presidents, the senators, and governors. You got, what else? They're going to the media. They're going to how the influence in the media in the United States with Israel and with Israel lobbyists, news, politics. So again, that's pretty much what they went over. Just trying to think what other main point did they cover in this book. Yeah, just a lot of how they would stifle criticism, stuff like that. And again with the media press, blank, just pretty much just blacking them out of different events. And they would go they said that they had interviews with on news channels, CNN, all that stuff. They called them up, they got interviews, and all of a sudden the day before, nobody can explain why it was canceled. It happened a lot of times. They had to go out of the United States to get interviews and other news stations, stuff like that. So they covered a lot of it and how it's controlled. And only thing that these two guys are saying is that they just want an open conversation with reasonable people on the subject without being called anti-Semitic or not being called racist. They just want an open conversation like you would do with any lobbyist group. But why is it when they talk about the Israeli lobbyist group, they're called all these names and blackballed from everything? They just like, look, let's just take a look at it for a second. Let's look at it, see what's there. If nothing's there, then let's move on. But they can't even, it's hard to have an open conversation. So they found a way they printed it. And this book was really, it was really radical at that time. It was a lot. Actually, it came out right before Barack had ran. And this book was really taken off. And there was a lot with it, especially when Barack ran, like how is the United States going to handle, especially after the Iraq War and George Bush, and it was just a lot, with it. And of course, Barack, he backed Israel like any other president did. They got in line and just backed him. Nobody knows why. I mean, you do, but you don't really know why. Why is it really in the United States' best interest to back them, and why? When we back them, are we siding with them correctly? It's like anything. If you keep backing somebody and they're doing wrong, the people that are watching you, they look at you as a moral, your morality, I wouldn't say the people. So I would say for as the morality when it comes to looking at the United States president, senators, and governors, it goes down, because they were like, well, wait a minute now, there's one thing if you back them if they're doing good, but to back them no matter what, it's like, so you can't trust anything that they say. So now it don't matter if it's good or bad, even if it's something that is good, anybody that's been an opposer or seen you not check them when they've done something bad, they just going to just say, okay, well, we can't trust anything they say. It's all bad. Let's don't even listen to them at all. So that's the danger that the United States faced with backing Israel in those moves, unconditionally. All right. So anyway, but as far as my perspective on the book, again, I think it's a really good book. It's an eye opener. It's something that if you read this book, now I've read this years ago and I had to freshen up for it just now because I know I was going to do this a little bit. So I know some things I may be forgetting in this book, but anyway, with this book, my perspective on it, it's a good book to read if you just want a little bit of insight on why the United States back Israel. A different perspective, other than the news, other than the media, other than what a politician is going to tell you. Just another view on it. Something that you're not going to get on the news channel. Something that you're not going to get from a radio station or something like that. Like real honest conversations, and then people, and they come in with facts to show you, and you look it up. Just look up the stuff. So, and if you care about that, then I would say get the book. just to get another perspective on it. Nothing else, just to say, you know what, I hear all the other stuff. What's the flip side to it? Because even though you hear all that stuff on the news, radio, politicians, president, Congress people, in your head, it's a piece of God and I always feel that's in you, in your mind, in your body, and that God part of you is saying something isn't right, like something. It got to be more to it, because it's not making sense. Why we giving them all this money, we backing them, so you know what it is. It's something else, and what that something else is that it's a powerful lobby, and they back and they're backed by the United States unconditionally. That's it. Because they're giving them money. They're making sure that these senators, mostly presidents, and Congress people are eating well. So, and they take care of them. So, and that's just it. It's that cold, and it's that plain. Oh, again, my perspective on also another one is this is just me looking at it as a black person in the United States. Is that if this group of Jewish lobbyists are that strong, if they're that strong and they control that much and have that much money, then why haven't they done anything for you? You can argue and say they have, but that's a lot of money. A lot of money and a lot of power. Why haven't they done something for you? So that's what I would say as a black man in the United States. Now, the other thing is, you look at the aid that the United States give the Jewish state, the Israeli state. They give them a lot of aid. Some people may argue and say they give black people that, but not to that extent. They don't back us unconditionally. They don't give everybody, per person like $1,000+ in support every single year. They don't do that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. After reading this book, it made me think, well, if they're giving this to Israeli people because of the lobby, so the lobby is pushing them, so what are we really dealing with? So it's all about the money. That's it. You get the money, you get the power, you influence these senators, congressmen, you get what you want. They're showing you the way. And I'm not mad at what the Israeli lobbyists is doing. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to do to protect their people. I get it. I respect it. But you just got to know what it is. Like, oh, okay, well, this is it. So what are we doing? But anyway, that's a whole nother book. But anyway, yeah, so again, KSK book review, Israeli lobby, U.S. foreign policy. This book will help you actually to understand, I think, in the past and even what's going on right now. All right, pick it up. All right.